If you could travel back in time, what writing advice would you give your younger self? A couple of months ago, I asked this question on Reddit, and a lot of the responses that I got on my Reddit posts were really enlightening and heartfelt. I picked about 10 to 12 of the best posts that I saw in the thread, and I'm gonna go ahead and share some of those with you guys right now. The first one that caught my eye was only 2 words, and all it says is just right. There was a second one that I found that kind of coincided with this one that said, stop screwing around and crank it out. That sounds a little bit suggestive, but in the context of writing, it makes a lot of sense. Lots of people think about writing a book. Some people spend hours, days, weeks, and even months coming up with ideas, worlds, characters, and everything in between, but they never actually sit down and write the book. Sometimes the best advice is the simple one. Just start. Everything else is gonna fall into place later. Now, the second piece of advice I saw said, finish what you start. It doesn't matter if the ending is awful, just finish it. It's easier to fix when you know where you end up, and you have to learn endings eventually anyway. Better to get some practice in ahead of time. I really resonated with this one because it kind of coincides with the first bit of advice, which was just start. But after you start, you have to be sure to finish your projects. My personal motto is you can't edit what's not there. A lot of people get hung up on their first drafts and making them perfect and, trying to get every little detail finished. But I say just finish your first draft and you can worry about everything else later. If your characters feel a bit flat, that's fine. If your dialogue sucks, that's fine. If you're missing a couple plot points or maybe your plot's not working 100% the way you want it to, it's fine. Just power through and get to the end, because if you keep stopping and starting and trying to fix all the little problems that you find along your way, you're gonna realize that you're never gonna get to the end. So my personal advice and the advice that I just read is get to the end and figure out everything after that. It's way easier to fix a foundation that's already there. The next piece of advice that I saw was write something daily. Do it enough until it becomes a habit. The only way you're ever going to finish your book is by having discipline. And discipline starts with building a routine. I personally struggle with this one because I do not write every day. In fact, I'm coming off of a 1.5-month writing slump, and it's really taking me a minute to get back into the swing of things. But I really do think if I told my younger self to, just write something daily, even if it's just like a paragraph or even if it's just a line of dialogue, just write something daily, keep your story on your mind. I feel like that can really help your brain with developing some sort of consistency and making it a lot harder to fall off your schedule. I do want to say, don't give yourself crazy goals every day. Like, don't tell yourself to write 2,000 words every day, because that's just not realistic, and it's more likely you'll miss out on that goal than hitting it every single day. Like, be kind to yourself, set realistic goals that you know you can hit, because the more goals that you hit, the more your brain is gonna want to write. It's kind of like positive reinforcement in a way. You keep hitting your goals and you're gonna build up that tolerance, and you're just gonna want to keep writing and writing, and that's how you're gonna get the consistency to finish your projects. This next piece of advice also really resonates with me, and this person wrote, what I would tell myself is that criticism cannot take away your creative spark, even if it's bad or personal. Only you can do that to yourself. And on the Reddit post that I made, my advice that I gave myself was to stop writing in a vacuum. I feel like these two relate to each other because for a long time, I was writing kind of just by myself, not sharing it with anyone. And I feel like it really stunted my growth as a writer. And I feel like the best way to grow as a writer is to get feedback on your writing. After a while of reading your own writing, you can get a little blind to your own flaws and, crutch words and crutch phrases and things that you're doing in your writing that you may not necessarily pick up on. So it can be good to get outside feedback. And negative feedback does not always have to be personal. And if it is personal, you probably don't need to be getting feedback from whoever's making you feel that way. Feedback is meant to help you, and the longer you shy away from it, the harder it's going to be for you to grow as a writer. Join that writing workshop. Reach out to that friend that you know has self-published a book or two. You can even join Discord communities where you can find critique partners who will critique your work for free. I'll be leaving a couple links to some Discord servers you can join in the description box below. If you're enjoying these tips, drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. This Reddit post got a ton of replies, so if you want me to make a part 2 or even a part 3 to this video, let me know down in the comments. Now, let's get back to some more writing advice that you would give your younger self. Next up, we've got, don't wait until you're in your early 20s to rediscover your love for reading. This one really hits for me because, in my opinion, to be a really good writer, you need to be a good reader. Find books in your genre that are doing what you want to do and study them. Study that author's writing style, what they do well, what they don't do well. If you're a newer writer who has maybe never written before, I would say to pick an author you really like and try and model your style after theirs. Now, I'm not saying copy them word for word, but like if you like their sentence structure or maybe how they do dialogue or the way they structure their plots, it's okay to kind of model yourself after them until you can develop a style of your own. Next up, we've got, remember to take breaks or else you'll burn out easily or sooner than you wanted. And another one that I found that kind of related to this one was, if you're feeling uninspired, maybe you should check on yourself to see if everything's all right. Burnout is a really important subject to keep in mind when it comes to any kind of creative hobby, whether it's writing, arts, or anything like that. It's a real thing. If you're constantly pushing yourself to write when you don't want to and setting unrealistic goals that you know you're not going to hit, burnout is way more likely to occur. And the second part of this advice that I really thought was interesting that I've never really seen people talk about before is that if you're feeling uninspired, look within yourself and see if everything's all right, because your own mental state really has a lot to do with how inspired you're feeling when it comes to your book. If you have a lot going on in your personal life and you're not really sure why you haven't been able to sit down and crank out some words, that might be the reason why. It's okay to take a break, to step back and recalibrate and sort things out in your own life before you get back to your project. Despite what I might have said earlier about having consistency and finishing your project, your book is not going anywhere. It's okay to take a step back and take a break and make sure that you're good before you go ahead and get back to your projects. Next up, we have, no one is looking at your first draft. Get it down and overhaul the whole thing later. Perfectionism is your problem. And similar to the previous one, if you're any type of creative, I'm sure you're very familiar with the idea of perfectionism. I know I am, and it's definitely held me back from reaching my full potential as a writer in the past. This also kind of ties back into finishing your project. A lot of people think their first draft needs to be perfect, and because of this, they almost never finish that first draft. My piece of advice would be to just get it all done. Trying to be perfect is what's stopping you from creating the best story you, and only you, can tell. Next up, we have, don't save up ideas for later projects. Instead, try to adapt and incorporate multiple ideas into your story. And we also have a follow-up comment that said, this is a really good one that helped my writing so much. Instead of trying to build an entire story around each quirky little idea, layer them into a delicious narrative lasagna. I really thought that was kind of funny because just thinking about, story ideas stacked up on top of each other like lasagna was just a funny image. And yeah, I really like this one because a lot of the times when people, start writing a book, it's based off of maybe 1 or 2 ideas. But after that initial spark of inspiration disappears, a lot of people get stuck. And I feel like this can be mitigated a bit if you start off your story with a couple of ideas that you've come up with instead of trying to save different ideas for different stories. By combining a bunch of your own ideas, you'll be able to create an utterly unique story that not only deserves to be read, but also deserves to be written by you. Next up, we've got, the more you write, the more you'll recognize your own bad writing. Some things you write will simply exist to get bad writing out of your system. The only way that you're gonna get better as a writer is if you write and practice. Write a lot. Examine your own writing with an analytical lens. Try to pick up on your crutch words or crutch phrases. How's your pacing? Is your story going by too fast or too slow? How does your dialogue sound? Do your characters sound like robots when they're talking to each other? By picking up on these things, you'll be able to realize what your flaws are and how you can get better as a writer in the long term. This is how you're really going to grow as a writer. And last but not least, we have what I think is the most important piece of advice that I would give my younger self as a writer. And it is, don't sacrifice your story on the altar of popular appeasement. Write regardless of the opinion of others. Your audience will find you. I figured we'd end off this video with one of the more important pieces of advice I found. While I'm sure we'd all love to get our books published and make millions of dollars someday, it's key to enjoy what you do because you enjoy doing it. You don't have to cave into market expectations or TikTok tropes just so you can sell your books. Keep hold of your integrity and your joy for writing, because there are a lot of authors out there who simply don't have either of those things anymore. Whether it's authors using AI to write or authors writing things that they don't have any interest in, it's really important to keep your own enjoyment for writing, even if that means your books are maybe not the most marketable. Because believe me, your audience is out there. You just have to give them the chance to find you. And that's where I'm gonna leave you guys today with this video. There were some really great pieces of advice in here, and I hope you guys were able to resonate with at least a few of them. Were there any that you agreed with or disagreed with? If you have any advice that you would like to give your younger self as a writer, drop it down in the comments and I may use it in the second part of this video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I'm going to be creating a lot more videos in the near future and you're not going to want to miss out. I've been LDJ Writes and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.